Hey, we're back. We're back.
I feel like I'm doing like, I don't know, what is it, wiggles? I don't know.
The
Anyway,
wiggles.
yeah,
We have a little mannerism going, like
little wiggle hands,
yay.
magic hands.
It's interesting. It's interesting. Like we obviously before we hit this record button, we were already chatting, right? And so yeah, talking about value. Gosh, where basically where we left off last time. So yeah, hey, this is Sonia, this is me. We're back.
We're
We're
back.
back.
We're back.
And so yeah, last time we sort of ended on this value point. And I've been thinking about it. I mean, it's a thing that is always in my mind, really, and that's always coming up. I don't know about you.
Yeah, it is. It's something that even if I'm not choosing to be conscious of it, it still sits there simmering away. And I think I said to you just before we came on, I'm not sure how much value I'm going to be able to offer today because I'm in quite a low flow sort of place. This week has been very low flow, and so it permeates everything, doesn't it?
Yes, yes, and that is why I thought is actually perfect, because my energy is not 100% at the moment either. Is that really necessary to be valuable? You know, is that not something like something else that we put on ourselves? Like we need to be 100% to be of value, or to be, or something needs to be. Isn't this perfection?
Yeah.
It's like, oh, I'm not perfect, so why would I show up today? Or why would I create this? Or why would I do this thing today? Maybe better wait until I am better.
Yeah,
and
better than what?
better? And what
Better
is
than, what does better mean? It's really, for me, it's a, okay, how do I just accept myself where I am and know that that's exactly where I'm meant to be, even if it's an uncomfortable place. And this is an uncomfortable discussion for me. Value is something that I struggle with, and a lot of people do. I think most people do, if to some degree. So it's quite a vulnerable place, and to be able to sort of sit in that uncomfortable spot and choose to be there. Ironically, that's where the value comes. Oh, how it goes around in circles.
I know. Hey, it's so strange. It is. Yes, it is a very vulnerable thing to talk about. It is also, especially for creatives.
Yeah.
Anybody that creates something. I guess, and I guess everybody is, in a way, everybody is creative. So you always create something, right? You make something. A mother cooks a meal. A mother cooks a meal. Is this going to be good enough? It's like that comparison. And that is where we lose track of the real value. And I think that especially because we both are in a little bit of a vulnerable or lower energy space in this week, or in this time. What is precious?
Yeah.
I've been thinking about it. What is precious? I mean, we both went through the earthquakes, right? And so you lose stuff in the earthquakes, and then you lose things, and then certain things that you thought were important and valuable suddenly lose their value, and other things that maybe you took for granted suddenly become more valuable, or you realize the value in them, right? Yeah.
Yep.
And
so absolutely.
So what is precious?
Like a train.
Hey, sorry.
It can hit you like a train. Like you can. It can be such a sudden awareness or awakening that all of a sudden you become aware that this thing or this part of yourself or this person or this part of your life, suddenly, it's not that it didn't have value before, it's just that maybe you didn't appreciate the value, or you didn't acknowledge the value that it had prior to whatever it is, that awakening. And yeah, precious, what is precious? So for me, I guess as a jeweler, the traditional definition, if you like, of something being precious is that it's rare.
Yeah.
Something that is rare, and there's not much of it, or it's hard to get, hard to acquire, and so the value comes in its rarity or its difficulty, and maybe that's what it is. Like if you take, so for me, one of the things that is very precious is time. Time is a fictional thing. However, it's the one thing, once it's gone, once that time has passed, you can't go back there. You can think back there, but you can't actually physically go back there. And so time is precious because this current moment, this now, this is very precious because it's the only moment that you have now. So it's precious, it's rare, it's hard to acquire, and once you have acquired it, it's really easy to drop it too.
Yeah. I like, if you think about it, a present, a gift.
Yeah.
Yes, time is, well, I guess anything that you no longer have suddenly becomes more valuable. My mom, for instance, it's spring, it's getting into spring in Europe. And so she's been messaging me, and she said, we haven't seen any bees anymore. They actually have a nationwide thing about bee counting. So they ask people to count the bees that they encounter or see on a day. And so they have a time frame where they ask as many people as want to participate to count the bees that they see. Yeah. Like sit in your garden, how many bees? She said, I haven't seen any bees yet.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. She said, and she said, so I think I'm going out into the garden with a brush, because the blossoms are coming out. Yeah, because there are no bees to pollinate. And
oh my gosh.
Yeah. And so you suddenly think about, because then you go like, yes, without bees, there's no pollination happening, there's no fruit growing, and then suddenly those things will start to become scarcer. And so they become more valuable. And we all see it, I guess, with when crops are lost, then suddenly the value of a produce goes up. But people have these things about, like, yes, gold is precious, so it's more expensive. This is a thing that is more valuable. I work a lot with recycled wood, reclaimed wood. And then it seems like, oh yeah, well, that's sort of the trash of Mother Nature.
Yeah.
So what's the value in that? And yesterday I was working with a beautiful piece of wood, and I had found, I collect them myself. So I have found that piece, and I have spent the time, which is precious, spend the time finding this piece. Then I spent time cleaning it and preparing it. And then I spent time burning my lines, following whatever is in that piece of wood. And then those are all stages, right? And I don't usually put a timer or a clock on when I do these things. I do them how it feels right and what it needs. And then yesterday I started painting this piece, and it has been in my hands for so many moments already. And as I was painting it yesterday, I discovered a little secret that the wood was hiding. And so I'm so, this is so cool. Those kind of things. And then as I'm working on that, as I'm spending more time with a piece like that, and when I discover something like that, my heart just fills with gratitude and with value, like if it becomes more valuable, you know, because I found this other little thing, and now I'm going to play a little bit more with that, so that it is going to be visible for, you know, everybody can enjoy that, find that secret.
Do you associate your contribution to the value? Like, how do you do that? Because clearly your contribution to the value of this beautiful piece of Papatuanu, if you're Mother Nature, is considerable, because you talk about this hidden piece that you have discovered in the wood, that the wood decided it picked you, or Mother Nature picked you to be the one to uncover this treasure.
Well, that's the difficulty. Yeah,
that is the difficulty, isn't it? So I guess the question is how do you then, because there's nobody else in the world who does what you do the way that you do it, with your vision, and you specifically were picked to bring this piece to life. So how do you then, I mean, we talk about scarcity, we talk about preciousness.
Yeah.
If you are the only one that has done this, can do this with this particular piece of wood, it doesn't get much more rare or precious than that, does it? So and I think this is where the vulnerability really comes in, because how do we then associate some, because I guess value means different things for different people, but it's very difficult to, especially we're creatives, yes, we're also business owners, and so we also operate by a standard of value, which is a monetary value, which is not everything, don't get me wrong, it's definitely not the only standard or measure of value. But how do we express value, our unique intrinsic value, especially when you're creating something like this? How do we express that to the world in a way that other people understand?
Well, that's the whole conundrum. Yeah,
Sure.
I don't. That's the thing. That's also the reason why it comes up all the time, right? Because yes, I do realize that I begin with something simple.
Mm-hmm.
I start my creative process often, or most of the times, with very simple resources, and I like to add. So how I describe it for myself now is that so yes, Mother Earth, Father Ocean, they give me, I don't know why, but I have associated, there's a king in the ocean that gives me the driftwood, you know, like the driftwood that I collect. It's sort of like there's a king in the ocean, sort of, you know, I don't know.
It's true, because I mean, from my perspective, Tangaroa is the god of the ocean. It's definitely a male deity. So I resonate with that completely.
But yes, but usually water feels feminine to me. But but anyway, so I sort of have this story going for myself. Like there's a king in the ocean that gifts me the pieces of wood that he wants me to find. And so, you know, I like all that. So I sort of feel like it's an energetic circle that happens. Like I receive that it's part of the earth. It's been carried by the water. It's been warmed by the sun, all that, you know, so it's energetically elemental, all that together. Then when I receive it, then I add my energy to it, you know, and then when the piece is finished and ready and adopted by others, then it breathes out all that energy into the space. So for me, it's an energetic vessel.
Exchange.
Hey?
Exchange,
yes. And so I find that's the thing, right? We started talking about it. How do you value your creations? After the earthquakes, when I had lost so much stuff, I didn't really have a lot of financial things going, you know, but I was able to give my time. So oftentimes the exchange that I gave to others was time, was my time. And then when it came to a point, because I was freely giving away my time for free, you know, and it felt right because I couldn't buy stuff. I couldn't buy expensive gifts or whatever. So I gave my time, and I always felt like it was never enough. The thing that I could give was never enough until I hit the point where I no longer had time for myself or for my kids because I was gifting it to others, you know, as an exchange. And then I realized, like, gosh, time is so much more precious than we initially think. Like, it's not an infinite source. Time is not infinite. And I love to talk about abundance. There are a lot of things that are there in abundance, and I have managed to stretch time, if you will. Like, I can do a lot of things with the hours that I have. And there is a limit. So at some point, you know, you realize that, yeah, there is value in that. So then how do I, you know, I like to lose my time in my work. I lose my time. As I said, I don't put a timer. I don't know about you, but I don't put a timer when I create. And so how do I price my things? Like, if I put a price tag, because in the end, there's an exchange because it's my business. And there are people that want to adopt my pieces. And so there is going to be that difficult situation where I am asked what the exchange then is. And how do I do that? You know, that's so difficult, because then when I put a price tag on it, then there are so many that go like, oh, it's just a piece of wood. You just find it on the beach. And then it's like, we can do that. And then I go, yeah, sure, go for it. Go do it. You know, go do it. Try, you know, by all means do it, because it's free. You know, you're free to create. It's like you make jewelry. There are other people that make jewelry, but nobody makes the jewelry like you do it. Because it's your hands. They're your hands that create it. Your heart, your soul, your energy is also in your jewelry. You know?
That's exactly right. And the other thing I think that makes it so difficult, and I know that you appreciate this concept as well, is that when we talk about time, the number of hours, or the amount of time that goes into developing the skill that it takes to create the art that you create.
Oh, the learning.
That the mastery of the process of the and the talent that goes into it. Talent is only so much intrinsic. The rest of it you learn. So you still have to continue to master the skills, and you find things that bring you joy, whether it's your painting, whether it's for me, it's we've talked before about the alchemy of the fire and the melting of the metal and the pouring. There are so many hours that I have joyfully and willingly and happily put into developing those skills, and it's really interesting because I know you've seen them. I often do these little videos on social media, and it's a 60-second snapshot of how I make a particular piece, or the actual making of a particular piece. And I do it for a lot of my customers. Like, I'll video the making of their particular treasure, and I'll do it. I can refine it down into a sped up 60-second snapshot. And the amount of people that go, wow, that looks so easy. And I have other jewelers messaging me going, how do you do that? Like, I can't, I've tried to do what you do, and I cannot get it to, I can't get the sand to do this. I can't get the metal to do this. I can't, how do you do it? And it always makes me a little tiny bit sad that I've chosen to speed the process up, because it seems so disingenuous to the value of what goes into it. So I'm learning to actually show people the real time, and that's real time after I've mastered a skill. there are literally hundreds of hours that have gone into all the mistakes that have contributed to that one moment. How do you value that? Like this, and I think this is the thing. Like we have this tendency, certainly in our society, that, and I think I alluded to it before, that value needs to be measured in some way, and one of the most accepted ways that we measure value is in a monetary sense. So we attribute a monetary figure, and we say that is the value of this particular outcome of this entire process. And so people will then go, okay, they accept that value, they see the value, they resonate with that value, and they understand, or they don't.
Mm-hmm.
And I have the same thing, because I work with recycled materials as well, and the amount of people that say, oh wow, okay, I'll give you gold from my rings, and you turn it into a ring for me. That's not going to cost very much, is it? And it's like, well, actually, the irony of all of that is that majority of the cost, the value, doesn't come in the materials. It comes in the joy and the love and the skill and the mana and the aroha that goes into the making, the transformation, the alchemy of this into this. And trying to explain that and trying to put that number that represents a value onto it, I think is quite disingenuous to that whole process. And I actually really don't have an answer for you, but I think for me, a big reason why I show all of the behind the scenes of what I do, I have a lot of people say to me, why do you do that? People are going to be able to copy you, and they'll be able to do what you do, and then you won't have this place in the market and blah blah blah. I actually really don't care. That's not what it's about. I want to show people, for me, the value comes in the sharing and the connecting and the joy, and it's a different value. You can't put a monetary figure, there's no number associated with that, and so it's a different measurement of value. For me, value in that sense comes, it's a relationship that you develop with people who are watching, people who are sharing that. It's not a monetary value. I know it's very difficult then to actually price. Like if we go back to the business side of things, say, how the hell do we price this piece if we're talking this sort of esoteric value, this equation? But the value is so much more than just that single number. That number can fluctuate, and then we come to this this kind of concept of what's the word? There's a word for it. Perceived value. What's the perceived value? And so for me, $100 represents this. For you, $100 might represent this, and for somebody else, $100 might represent something completely different. So even when we put this monetary figure on things, there's a perception of value in that. And so we're trying to reduce everything down in a value sense to its lowest common denominator, but even that has a different perception of value depending on the person. And so for me, I think that the value comes in being very authentic. Well, you can't be very authentic or not very authentic. You either are or you aren't. But being as authentic as you possibly can be in any given moment, and being very transparent and very true. Don't hide yourself behind what you make, because people love what you create because of who you are, not in spite of it.
Yeah. And I think at some point you used some Te Reo Maori words like mana and aroha. And I think that those words describe it best, and those kind of words describe these things best. And I think that it could well be because the more indigenous people all over the world still know how to slow down for craft and love and spiritual connections. And I think that that may be something that a lot of the faster Western world, whoever goes into that hamster wheel, has lost. You know, people that continuously live that fast in the fast lane, they have no time to slow down and appreciate what the hidden value in things, in anything. So I think that and maybe because we are creatives and we do slow down because of our process, you know, because of our creative process, the best creations are made when you allow yourself to slow down and be
100%.
one with the process of the creation. And because we can do that, we can also recognize the value in other people's creations. And I think that may be the disconnect. That may be the difficult thing to show the people that are living fast all the time, that have a hard time slowing down, for them to see that value, you know. And I don't mean to say that there's anything right or wrong with somebody that is living fast. I mean, I used to run in my hamster wheel too, you know, or in that hamster wheel too. I just think that if you know how to slow down, you can also recognize things that need time. You know, it's like some things you cannot rush, some things you cannot speed up, some things just need time. I have my students that come to me to learn creative expression, art, visual expression, and then they go like, oh yeah, I want to do oil painting, and then I go, you realize that there are times that you need to let that painting rest between, because simply the oil paint needs time to cure. You cannot speed up the drying or the curing process. That just needs time. And then they go, oh, is there no way that you can speed this up? Is there no way that you can just use a dryer or air or heat or whatever? And I go, it just needs time. It just needs time. And that is with cooking. When you marinate something, it needs time to soak up all the juices and all the flavors and all that. So then we go back to time.
We do. Yep. And it's interesting. I think the point that you made about the speed at which we live our lives, I think is really valuable, because it made me pause and think, perhaps then the real value comes from. So for me, the greatest joy I get is when my customers or the people, my audience, connect with me and connect with what I make. But in order to do that, you have to slow down, because the connection, if you're going so fast that you can't connect, you're going to miss it all. It's like and the connection comes from inside. So it's
just
like
I have this strange vision about speed dating.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, same thing. It's like, why do we need to speed everything? We don't. Slowing it down. And I think, you know, and I love your point about the Indigenous connection, because actually I was having this conversation with my son at the weekend, and we were talking about the written word. He's studying to be a screenwriter at the moment, and we were talking about the power of the written word, and we were also talking about colonization. And one of the things that we were discussing was, so my son and I are both Ngāi Tahu Māori, Indigenous New Zealand, through my father's side of the family. And Māori didn't have a written language; they were oral storytellers. And when you tell a story, there's so much more to telling a story. When you're speaking to someone, telling a story, you're embellishing it. There's all sorts of things that are in there, and it takes time. You have to have pauses. You have to have There's different meter when you're talking to emphasize different parts of the story, and so you don't necessarily do that when you're reading. You read at your pace, which is great, but you know, there's a push to speed read and get as much content in you and comprehension in you as possible. But when you are listening or telling a story, it's like us having this conversation here. It takes as long as it takes.
Yeah.
You can't speed it up. You can't make it go faster than it needs to be. It's going to be what it is. And that connection with one another comes through slowing it down, and for me personally, a real connection comes with, it's timeless. There's no time stands still. When you really connect with a person,
yeah,
regardless of who they are, time is irrelevant. And so we can throw time out the window, actually, because time stands still.
Yeah.
But ironically, I think you've got to slow down long enough to allow yourself to be in that place where you can connect with people. That for me is a real measure of value. There's a huge amount of value in being able to slow down long enough to stop and connect.
And not only connect with people, also connect with yourself.
Yeah, 100%.
I think. Well, I mean, that's another part, of course, in the work that I do, and I know that you do as well, is you know, your self improvement. You keep yourself empowered. You keep yourself going. We, as creative businesswomen, we need to keep our motor running. Like, we need to keep ourselves going, and so to empower you, to encourage yourself to keep going, you need to connect with yourself, and that also takes time. Yes. So because if you just rush by the mirror just to go like, oh, quick, yeah, and that's it, then you don't connect with yourself. It's I don't know about you, but I do a lot of mirror work. I also encourage my clients always to do a lot of mirror work, because it makes for a connection with yourself at a level that most of us have started to lose. And then just, it's time, and also being okay with a bit of silence, you know, with a bit of silent space. And I find that when I'm creating, I don't know about you, sometimes I have my music going, and sometimes I just want silence.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, yeah.
Yeah. It's interesting. I don't do a lot of mirror work, to be honest. I actually really don't have a lot of mirrors in the house, to be perfectly honest with you. However, I do a lot of introspection. I do a lot of journaling.
Yeah.
I do a lot of sitting quietly and thinking and just being present. I meditate. I walk anywhere between 5 and 10 Ks every morning, and I love to sit. I live about 2-3 Ks from the beach. Yes. And I love to walk down to the beach for sunrise and just sit there and be present with it. Yeah. And that's a really important time for myself. I do the same in my garden. I have a beautiful vegetable garden and flower garden, and when I'm in my studio, I do have stuff play. I have music playing when I feel like it, but the majority of the time I don't. It's just I can hear the birds and I can hear the ocean, and that's all I need. And the things that ruminate in my head, sometimes I almost physically need to go, oh, okay, you can just take a rest and just sit over there for a while, and I'm just going to be in the process. Yeah. And when you get to, for me, when I get into the creative flow, I don't need to eat, I don't need to drink, I don't. Yeah. Time just disappears, and I'll eventually look up and go, oh, the sun's quite low, or all of a sudden my stomach will grumble, or I'll need to go to the bathroom, or something. And it's like hours and hours have passed, and I'm completely unaware of them. Yeah. And it's a beautiful place to be. I seek that out, that place, being with myself. I really enjoy it. I like my own company. the trick for me is to not like my own company so much that I don't connect with other people, because there is a tendency, honest to God, there is a tendency to go, oh, I just can't be bothered with other people right now, and I just want to be quite reclusive. And the really interesting part about that is that even this morning before we came on this call, I know I said to you, I don't know how much value I'm going to be able to offer today, because I was really not in a good flow space, but this connection,
Yeah.
this, I feel totally different. And
Yeah.
thank you for that, because that's a massive value to me personally. So thank you.
Well, when you sent me that message, I mean, I know a little bit why you perhaps felt that way, and I thought if it were the other way around, because that's an easy one to say, right? I don't know if my energy is very low, and then it would have been very easy for me to also say it's okay, we'll just reschedule, because I can do something else, you know. I have many projects. I can just do something else. It's fine. And I thought if it were the other way around, I would need that push. Yeah. I would just need that little encouragement to go like, let's just still talk. Let's just still talk and see if this actually adds to the value of our talk about value. Because that is really, when we feel low, I mean, again, like in the beginning, when I said, like, if you don't feel 100%, it's so easy to say, oh, you know, but what is 100%? What is 100%? And when are you're valuable no matter what? You're valuable, your time is valuable, your energy is valuable, regardless, right? And maybe even especially more when you show you put, I don't want to say push, when you move yourself through that hurdle of like, oh, just, you know, when you show up regardless, you know, and as, of course, as a solo business owner, that comes up often. We need to show up. It's almost like, I know we met at a drama class, right? The show must go on, right? You need to, actors, performers, whatever, they have to come onto the stage, and so you need to show up. And that doesn't mean that you need to push yourself through anything and just forget about yourself. I think the important thing for us to know is that we are going to add value regardless of how we feel about ourselves at that moment. And so again, it's so easy for us to devalue ourselves and to say, well, I'm not good enough to show up today, but you are, right?
And I think especially when we are in business by ourselves, if we're spending that much time by ourselves in our business, then if you can't get if you're not offering validation for yourself by yourself, then you start to seek it externally, and that can be a slippery slope. And we all do it. We all look outside of ourselves for some external validation, especially when you're creating things that are an extension of you to put into the world. I don't think there's anything wrong with doing that. It's when you are comparing yourself to others or to what else is out there in the world. I found myself doing that this week, and I think that contributed massively to my collapse of yeah, absolutely. And it's a real thing when you're in business by yourself, because value, like we've been saying, value is such a multifaceted thing, but the most important value that you offer is yourself to the world. It's your contribution to the world, and however that shows up and however that looks. And you are doing that no matter what your energy state is. It's okay to come to the world with a low flow, with a low energy, because no matter what you come to the world with, you're going to meet other people there who are going to come and meet you, regardless of what your flow state is. And they're going to recognize you there, and you're going to recognize them, and realize that actually, no matter how alone we feel, we're actually not alone. We're actually all in this together.
What I even want to add to that is that at some point, at some stages or times, I don't know about you, but I can feel like, well, if I just completely disappear, nobody will notice. So what is even the reason for me doing this or creating this or showing up or talking about this or whatever, you know? It's like, if I'm gone, nobody's gonna miss me, kind of thing. So those moments when you feel low like that, and when those are the times that you almost go down that downward spiral. We talked about spirals last time, I remember, and we probably will always talk about spirals. But yeah, so you know, you can easily slip down a downward spiral, but you can as easily climb up an upward spiral. It's that in-between phase that is always a bit tricky, right? And I think it is that those moments where you are sort of balancing on the verge and going like, you know, if you just let it slip, then you know, but then you devalue yourself, I think. So then I really appreciate somebody like you that I have in my life, in my world, that can catch me, that can say, hey, no, you know, come on, you know, keep going, because what you do is important, what you do is valuable, what you create is special. And I know you feel the same things, you know, you feel the same things. And I know that many creatives feel that. Those are the tricky times, They
really are. I put a post up last night, and it's funny because I love words, and I often will search out beautiful quotes or pieces of wisdom to accompany my post. And the one I found last night, and I'm not going to get it right, but and I can't even remember the name of the poet that wrote it. Essentially, it was whether you don't be afraid of blazing with light or collapsing into yourself, because that's how galaxies are made. And I didn't, when I put it up, like, I knew I needed to put that particular piece of poetry up, but I didn't possibly fully appreciate just how important it was to the discussion that we're having today, because it really is about that you can shine brightly, and we're all encouraged to shine brightly, but don't be afraid of those times when you have to collapse into introspection as well, because that's as valuable as the kaboom that's shining brightly. And it's true, it's a flow. And so the upward spiral, the downward spiral, it's still a spiral. We're still moving. It's change, it's evolution. It's constant evolution, and it's an ebb and it's a flow, it's a remembering and a forgetting. It's this beautiful duality that we all are. And I 100% value the souls that I have, like yourself, specifically you, in my life, to have these beautiful creative people who go, yeah, I get it. I see you when you're collapsed into yourself, and I see you when you're shining brightly, and you're just as beautiful no matter which way you go.
And oftentimes those dark places, those shadows, they create the energy you need for those beautiful bursts of light. a lot of people always talk about you need to find a balance, and balance is like even in weight, right? So then it's at a standstill. If something is in balance, it is even. And so as a visual artist, I like to have contrasts, because between contrast you can play. There's energy between contrast. There's energy that bounces between contrast. And that brings creation. And so if something is in balance, it is still. There's no movement. And so I always think like it's better to have a harmonious play. Yeah, because there's movement, there's energy. You can do something with it. You can do something with it, and it's yeah.
I totally agree, and that's such a beautiful way, because flow only happens when there's a difference.
Yeah.
Whether it's an up and a down, or it's an in or an out, or however that works. Flow happens when there's a differential between the two endpoints, and balance is exactly what you've said. It's where things don't move. And we need balance. Of course we need balance. We need to have that place where we can pause and take a breath.
Yeah.
But the true creation comes from the movement between those points of balance. That's where the magic happens. Magic.
Magic. Yeah, and I always then I remember what my dad said. Like a business is like a wheelbarrow. You have to keep it moving, because if it's at a standstill, then it's dead. Yeah. So and he always had his own business. So there needs to be movement. And I think that maybe you need a little bit of a balanced place for a breather sometimes. But then again, I like to sway, and I have very restless hands. And even though I may be calming down, my hands are usually doing something, simply because they can't sit still. And my mind, I don't know about your mind, but I have a thing, like in the beginning when somebody said, oh, this is how you meditate, and I go, well, I can't even do that right, because I cannot empty my mind. My mind is never empty. So so that's the thing. Like I found ways to meditate my way. So also there, in the beginning, I would devalue myself as a human being because I couldn't do this, or this. You just need to find the way it works for you, right? And that's where your values are, and that's how you build your own value up, I think. And that's how you can feel that you are valuable. But it's not selfish. I always feel like when I talk about these things, when I talk about loving yourself, valuing yourself, all those things, like people will go like, oh, well, she's a bit of an ego kind of, but it's not that, right?
No, it's not.
It's keeping yourself. It's not putting yourself up on a pedestal, but it's keeping yourself in a place where you give yourself permission to do the thing that your heart and your soul desires to do. So if you like, I always feel like making things that make the world a prettier place, or that actually make other people feel better about themselves.
Yep, I agree with that. And the ego thing, it's very easy to fall back on the ego argument, but I'm like you. I call myself an active relaxer.
That's a good one.
I can't. I find it very difficult to stop in a traditional sense. I'm not that kind of a person. I like to be moving. Movement is something that is very near and dear to my heart, whether it's growing things or making things or cooking. I love cooking. But I'm an active relaxer. And like you, I used to judge myself harshly for that, because I couldn't just sit down and read a book, or I couldn't meditate the way that I was supposed to meditate. And like you, I learned to. I remember as a gosh, wasn't very old. I was a young, probably preteen, and I remember walking somewhere one day, and I got this mantra going in my head, just this keep on moving on, keep on, and it was just every single step that I took. And it wasn't until years later that I realized that was a meditation. It was a walking meditation. It was an active meditation. I didn't even know what I was doing, but it just felt so right and so me. And I think, like, if we come at creativity and come at value from a point of connection, if it's going to be an ego thing, and I'm immediately putting ego kind of up here, then it's up and away from people. You can't, if it's an ego thing, there's no connection.
Yeah.
If it's a true genuine self, and it's a care for yourself in order to be able to offer value and be able to provide or offer the things to the world. I'm the same as you. It's very much about beauty, and it's about emboldening people to love themselves and see themselves the way that I see them, the way that the world sees them. That's not an ego thing. Ego's up here. You can't connect. There's a disconnect.
Yeah.
When it's a connection, there's no ego involved there. There can't be, because I don't think ego is a place where you can connect. We all have it. Ego is what keeps us going. It's not a right or wrong, but looking after yourself, taking care of yourself, so that you can be the best of yourself to offer to the world and connect with the world from that place of that beauty within yourself. That's not an ego thing. That's a soul thing.
Yeah, I'm glad you see that as well. Yeah. Well, also that you need to learn to value your thoughts and be okay with how you see things, without, again, comparing. Gosh, value connects a lot with comparison. Hey.
Yeah, doesn't it? Doesn't it?
Yeah. So value your own thoughts, value your own, how you see things. That is good enough, that is all right, that is okay, that is just fine. Yeah. And that nobody else needs to say, yes, you're thinking about or you're seeing this in the right way, because what is a right way? Again, what is the right way? What is perfect? What is precious? What is valuable? It's in the eye of the beholder as well.
Absolutely, it is. Yeah, it totally is. And the thing is to take ownership of being the beholder.
Yeah.
That's the thing, isn't it? It's like we tend to, if you're, I agree with the comparison thing. Somebody said to me this morning, comparison is the thief of joy. And if you're handing over your own joy to comparing yourself with someone else or something else, then you're losing that connection with self, and understanding that, yes, beauty is in the eye of the beholder, and your responsibility in this world is to yourself, and that you are the beholder of your own beauty.
Yeah.
And coming from that place there, then there's the connection. That's an open invitation for people to come and connect, and for you to connect with the world.
And then it is like, this is what I create, and I love the process of creating it, and I get a lot of value out of the process, out of the creation. And then, so if you then value it in your way, then that's fine. And if you don't, then that's okay too.
It's okay too. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
that's right. And I don't need anybody. My value, my own intrinsic value, the way that I see myself, is not dependent on other people seeing it the same way.
Yeah.
They can't. They're not me.
Yeah.
They can connect with parts of it and appreciate parts of it and see themselves in parts of it, but ultimately and essentially, it's you're just you.
Yeah. And that is true too. Like, you know, the thing that you create, whatever it is, your creation, but the thing that you do is how it comes from a place, comes from an experience, comes from something you've learned, and you put that all together. That's alchemy, right? You put it all together and it comes out in this thing. Like I give you 10 ingredients and I take the same 10 ingredients and we both go cooking, and whatever we come up with comes out differently.
Yeah.
Right? And that is because of experience, things you've learned, things you've heard, seen, blah, blah, blah. And then you create this thing and it has a value because of what you've put in it. And then if somebody else sees or tastes it afterwards, or hears it or reads it afterwards, they come from their place with their experience, with their knowledge, with their wisdom, with their all that. So they see it in a different way than I may see it, than you may see it, than everybody. So it's a game. It's a game. It's a game in a way. It's a game. And so why do we just need to play? We just need to play.
That's it. Sometimes we take ourselves far too seriously sometimes, don't we? Yeah. It's the joy comes in that it's a childlike joy of not having attachment to it. And it's really interesting because, you know, as we talk about value, and we put so much of ourselves into our creations, right? But there's this thing in my head, and I'm thinking it's a little bit like having children. So you know, genetically, your children are part of you. There's this absolute undeniable part of yourself, and whether you have biological children or you're adopted children or you're an auntie or an uncle or whatever, you're imparting some of yourself into those young people with the ultimate goal of letting them go.
Yeah.
And be free and be themselves and have their journey in the world. And art is like that.
Yeah.
So we can put so much of ourselves into this piece of art, and when we put it out into the world, it's like an offering. It's like, okay, go.
Yeah. Now live
be
your
free.
Now live
go
your,
and do what you need to do. I have no attachment to that any longer. It's not mine to attach to. Yes. There's a part of me in it, but I let it. I do my best. Sometimes it's harder than others. I admit, no perfection here. Yeah. But the intention is that it is a part of me, but it's not attached to me.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yeah. And talking about value or pricing things, then, you know, like at some point, because that's the right thing, right? You release it. Yep. To go and live with somebody else in another place or whatever. And so that exchange, because I remember in the beginning, I used to give my creations, you know, when I was younger, when I began, I used to just gift them, and then they would come from my heart, from my soul, without any exchange, without any loaded valuable meanings or whatever, you know, it was just from my heart. And so it was all I could give, and I loved it, and people would receive it. The people that I gifted my creations to would receive it because I knew they would love it. That's why I would give it to them, right? The moment you start selling as a business, because, you know, we're talking about that as well from our business sense, I know that there have been times when you said sometimes it's harder than other times to let those pieces go. I have sold creations with price tags that made me hurt when they left my place, you know, when they left my space. And so, because I know for artists, there's always this discussion about how do you value your art when you sell it? Do you price it? Do you price it on size? Do you price it on time? Do you price it on you know, the material price, the investment in the materials or whatever? And when you said, like, how do you value in the beginning, when I was talking about this energy, You said, how do you value that? You know, so those things are all, and I know that there are many ways that other people suggest that you can price your creations. I you know, perhaps this one works for this person, this other way works for somebody else. What I have come to in the end is where I will sit with the piece, I will think about the value, I will look up angel numbers.
Yeah.
Because I sort of attached, then I go like, okay, so I think about this number and then I check what the meaning of the angel number is. And then I go like, and then I see, you know, I match it with a number that feels right and where the meaning feels right too. And then I just leave it like that.
Yeah.
And I know that if it will be adopted for that exchange, then I feel okay with it. I don't hurt it. I don't feel envious or angry or pain or whatever, you know. I feel like that is good, that it goes for the right, you know, with the right message, with the right, yeah, as a whole. And so that doesn't matter whether it's large or small, because sometimes small pieces, and you know this, you work with jewelry, small things can take a lot of time to work on. You know, I think it is ridiculous to say, oh, my work is only like as big as a post stamp, so it's worth, you know, a fraction of something that is bigger, because the bigger thing might have been a lot easier to work on, simply because the strokes are, you know, there are so many aspects that are involved in creating something. That small doesn't always mean cheaper. I don't think so, you know.
No,
and if that is, and if that would be the reason somebody wants to buy or adopt it or not, then I that would be the wrong match, the wrong match. Yeah. So for me, it's very intuitive and energetic and soul-based now. I don't know about you. You probably work a lot more with things that, you know, well, precious metals, I guess, and precious stones. Well, precious, there you go.
Yeah. I actually, I have two different ways that I do my pricing, because I supply into shops, into retail outlets. I have to have a structure for the majority of my pieces, and because I also have, because there's two different sides to my business. One is I'll say manufactured, just for a point of difference, but they're pieces that can be relatively easily reproduced. Everything is handmade, but they are designs that are reproducible. And then I have the custom made pieces. So they're the totally unique, one of a kind, working with a unique stone or somebody's even personal remains, or a special sand or something like that. So there's that side of the business, and it's very much more attuned to the same sort of approach that you take. But one of the things that I have always struggled with is I have a distinct materials cost. The price of gold is the price of gold. If I choose to get fabricated metal sheet or metal wire, the price is what the price is. There's no two ways about that. So I have a materials cost. I literally have a spreadsheet with the pricing formula that is adjustable. But where I have been able to find a place in that where I can sit comfortably is, so there's an hourly rate that so that this is the making cost and how long it takes to make an individual piece, and then there's the hourly rate. So it might take an hour of my time to make a particular piece, and there's an hourly rate. Now, what I actually do is, depending on the piece that I'm making and how much of my time has gone into developing a skill, or how precious that particular skill is, the hourly rate changes, which is, for me, is a reflection of my skill that goes into a piece. So I can have pieces of jewelry that are actually really quite simple to make. They might be stamped pieces of jewelry. There's a lot of that sort of jewelry out there. That's absolutely fine. The hourly rate that I price myself at is considerably lower than the sand cast pieces, where I have literally spent hundreds of hours perfecting, no, that's not the right word, mastering the technique that very, very few other people globally can do. Same as what you offer to the world. And so that's where, for me, that's the point of difference with my pricing structure. Yes, it's the same pricing structure that thousands of jewelers, tens of thousands of jewelers can operate. It's, you know, it's a wholesale cost, wholesale, retail kind of pricing schedule.
Yeah.
But the piece in that is me is that this particular piece of jewelry or this range of jewelry, this bit of art has a lot more of me in it because of the skills that I bring to this particular piece. The only way that I can express that is either by saying it's taken more time to make, or I add a different monetary value to my hourly rate for that particular piece. And that's how I do a lot of my manufactured, if you like, or manufacture is probably the right word for it, but my reproducible jewelry, the ones that, while they are all one-of-a-kind pieces, the style or the design it's a reproduced design going forward. Does that make sense?
Yeah, makes sense. I had a ceramic teacher back in Holland where I took classes for a time, and he made these one-of-a-kind things, but he also had he called them his sandwiches. Those were the things that he could easily reproduce. They were all unique because they were all handmade, and not any two were the same, of course, but they were sort of like manufacturable kind of things that he could do, and he would take them to fairs and to markets and things like that. You know, they were his constant sandwiches, he called them.
Yeah.
And the other pieces, were the commission pieces, were the show pieces, were the gallery pieces and things like that, and they were one-offs always, and they were of course more expensive because there's the whole vision behind it as well. You know, there's the vision, there's the heart and the soul part in it. Then it's the energy of the artist, of the creator, that is added to it. And I definitely think that when we, and there's this, for him as well, you know, there's the whole learning, the whole mastering, the whole practicing. It's like, it's crazy because we can all walk, you know, we all learn to walk as children. We just take that for granted, but how many hours of practice goes into that, you know? And there are so many of those kind of things that that you forget that there are many hours of practice before, like, as you say, when you see one of your little films, one of your little movies, how easy it looks. But that's with everything, right? I look at figure skaters, for instance, and they make all these beautiful jumps and they look so simple. But, you know, if I go on the ice, I need quite a few hours to master something like that, you know? And that's the thing. When you see it and it looks easy and your life is fast, and you just see something, you go, oh, that's easy. Yeah, you know, if I have a Sunday afternoon, I can master that. Well, think again. Think again. You know, some things just take time. Take practice, and I think a lot with crafty and creative things that is valuable. That is valuable.
Yeah, it's very valuable, and I think that ties us beautifully because
do we have the answer? No.
No, definitely not. We have some thoughts. We have plenty of thoughts, but I think that it's probably, when you're in a creative business, I think it's one of the biggest bones of contention and the biggest source of anxiety and fear and the thing that prevents us putting our work out into the world is this question of value. How do I value this? And there's no right or wrong answer. You know, I when I first started making jewelry, I used to sell my stuff on Etsy, and there was an awful lot of in all the forums and everything, there was a lot of people talking about how terrible it was that people were selling pieces of whatever they created at these rock bottom prices, because it was, you know, it wasn't fair and it wasn't this. But that's a reflection of their own sense of value. You can't you know, if somebody said to me many years ago, if you go into business and you want to compete on price, you will always be competing.
Yeah.
You will always be competing. So be a point of difference, you know, and you already are, because you're unique in the world, and what you put into the world is already unique. You don't have to be like the next person. Exactly. In fact, your point of value, your point of beauty is because you're not.
Yes.
And it just takes time, I think. Again, we come back to this, you know, spending time being with yourself and understanding that value and that beauty that you bring to the world. It really is the thing that will get you the furthest distance along on your journey of valuing yourself.
Yeah. I think that is great. Yes, that is really great, because it is, the value is in you, the value is in your time, in your and it's connecting with self.
That's the first point. That's the first step, is connection with self. And often as creators, we leave it to last.
Trust that what you feel and what you think, I think that's a big thing as well. Trusting that inner voice that tells you that, you know, like as I said, when in the beginning, when I sold something for a very low price as well, I hurt. It pained me. It pained me when I saw that piece go, and I almost felt envious that this person had it for that price, you know. And then so trust those feelings, those gut feelings, and that the inner voices, the wisdom that comes from within, because that usually is correct. And if you override that too many times, then you start to struggle, then you start to battle with yourself a little bit, and that's not beneficial for any creative process, and also not for yourself, not for your health, not for anything.
Absolutely, it can come crash. It's a house of cards right there. Can come crashing down with a little tiny breath of wind. I think actually that maybe that is the topic of our next discussion, is listening to that intuition and that inner voice, and learning what that sounds like, how to trust that, what that is. Maybe that's another topic.
It's fun like that, right? We start talking and then we find the next thing to talk about, because there are so many things we can talk about. I think we can just have a little hat and just pluck. So anybody that has a suggestion, just also throw it into the mix. But we usually find in our conversations something that we can talk about next. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, trusting that inner voice, the inner wisdom that comes up, that intuition, that that's
muse. What our internal muse is trying to communicate with us.
Yes, for sure. That was really great.
That was fun. Thank you.
It makes me feel good again. It makes me feel good again to keep creating today.
Same, Joyce. It's I've got a little project on in the studio today, and something brand new, something totally a new technique that I've never seen it anywhere else, and it just kind of sprung up in my mind a couple of weeks ago, and I'm finally getting into the studio today to have a go and see if it works. It might not, but that's okay. That's part of the process. I'm okay with that. So yeah, thank you. I feel energized and excited.
Nice.
There's joy. I've got some joy to head in and do that today. Yay!
Yeah. I'm happy for you, and I can't wait to see what that is.
It'll be different, that I promise.
Alrighty, so then we'll see whoever tunes in. We'll see you again.